If you're a team leader and you're frustrated with all of the things that you have to do, I want to share with you a couple easy strategies that I've used over the years to prioritize activities and simplify the life of a team leader. I want to share with you a bit of my journey to this point. Now, going back about 17 years ago, I was a solo agent on a team and got fairly successful fairly quickly and began growing my team within the first 2 years. And as you can imagine, on the journey to selling 5,000 properties, I've made a lot of mistakes. And so I have some insights about prioritization, because were it not for those things, we would not have lasted. And we certainly wouldn't be where we are today with a team the size of ours, now scaling across Canada with just 50 agents here in Southern Alberta. And so I'm really proud of that, but it does come down to being able to deal with all of the static that a team leader deals with. And if you've done this anytime at all, you know that one of the things that we dream of when we create a team is flexibility, money, and freedom. And what you've likely found, at least in the early stages of your team building, is that you have none of those things, just more stress, more balls to juggle, more personalities to manage, and less control. So the purpose of this video is to really give you a sense of how it is that you can gain some control and decrease the number of balls that you're juggling and have you moving towards those things that you desired when you began to build your team. Now, one of the things that serves us all in business, regardless of whether or not you're a solo agent or a team leader, is the focus on dollar productive activities. Now, if you think about an agent, we know that prospecting and following up are the key elements to success, particularly in those first 3 years before you've got your book built and you've got systems in place to deliver sphere of influence and referrals and repeat business. And the interesting thing about being a team leader is that there are core activities of a team leader that really don't go away, that in my view should always be a part of a team leader's job. Now, to give you some context, I'm friends and have networked and masterminded with literally the top team leaders in the world. I mean, we're talking teams that are doing thousands of transactions per year, hundreds of agents across multiple states and provinces. And I want to share with you uniformly some of the things that those team leaders are still actively involved with. And these are just activities that, despite all the leverage that you can gain as a team leader in the business, there are some things that you should not be getting away from. And the answer for why you should not be getting away from them is because they are your highest dollar productive activities as a team leader. Now, uniformly, what you'll hear consistently from all top performing team leaders is that marketing and branding really needs to be under your umbrella. Now, that doesn't mean that you're not going to have people in a department, managing the execution of these things, but the ideation and to some degree the philosophy or strategy around integration are going to need to come from the team leader. Now, I'll give you the rationale for that, because I didn't really like that advice when I first heard it many years ago. But the rationale is this: the team has been built on all of the best things about you, your service, your personality, your character, your values, your mission, all of those things, whether proactively or passively, have become part of the culture of your team. And if you're no longer actively involved in the delivery of that message via your marketing, you're going to have a very disjointed and disintegrated brand that is going to seem less professional than it should, and ultimately will be less effective than it should be. And so that doesn't mean that you have to understand exactly what buttons to press in order to hit an audience with retargeting. And it doesn't mean that you have to know exactly how to run all of your ads and so forth. But it does mean that you need a working knowledge of how those things, what they serve, the quality of the opportunities that they're creating, where those opportunities go, and how they're being managed. And it's not until you have a clear understanding of all of those integrative pieces and that you're in charge of the largest pieces of it that you can be sure that your brand message is consistent and that you're spending money wisely. Because as you know, in our industry, it's incredibly easy to throw money at different opportunities, to hope that they will work out, and then quickly move on to the next thing, hoping that this thing that you're spending $2 or $3 or $10,000 a month on is effective, when really you're not sure because you've got somebody else implementing it or you're kind of passively managing it. And so I just want you to know that needs your attention and that you do need to be the person overseeing that, who's being reported to on the success of that, and that you need to be actively engaged in that consistently. The second thing that you need to be aware of, that's something that you really can't get away from, is at very least overseeing and being the person responsible for the attraction and retention of the agents in your team. And again, it goes back to how you built this organization, the mission and vision and values that you stand for, how the service will be delivered, and what the back-end systems in that service delivery model will look like and feel like to the consumer. And you've heard this 1,000 times, but if you don't inspect what you expect, you can be certain that the agents on your team are not going to be doing those things to your satisfaction or to the way that you would like to be done. And so in order to be sure of that, you do need to be involved in the recruitment process. Now, that could simply be in terms of creating the system, understanding how it's going to work, building out the SOPs, and having other folks in your organization to interview and to onboard. But you also need to be engaged in that process through reporting, and in some cases, through the engagement of those new agents. Now, one of the things that I let go of that process was the contracts. It just seemed like I was always held up with contracts. And at the point where, people were saying yes to us and wanting to come on board, I was quite delayed in my ability to do that because of just being something that I hate doing and that I would often procrastinate on. So that's one piece that I let go of. But, for some time I let go of the entire system. And I can tell you firsthand that with a great leadership team in place, that just didn't work. The truth is that as the team leader, when you are building your team, you have the greatest knowledge of the way things should be, the way things ought to be, the way things are the way that you want them to be. And unless you've got the right people doing the right things, trained the right way, onboarded the right way, then you're setting yourself up for low retention, for poor service delivery, and unfortunately, the risk for a deteriorating culture within your organization. And that can happen very rapidly if you're not paying attention to how you're recruiting, what those messages are, who the people are that are coming, what their expectations are, and how they're being onboarded to your team. And so those two things are just absolutely critical to the ongoing success and growth of your team. Now, kind of a subcategory of that last piece relates to sales management. Now, on my team, I have a database manager, but we're cautious to not call that position a sales manager. And as someone who's personally sold a lot of properties, probably somewhere around 1,000, I can tell you that I have tremendous knowledge, not just through that work, but also through my coaching and supporting the agents on my team, that you just need to be involved in whatever that model looks like in terms of service delivery, but also in terms of the way that culture is maintained in the organization vis-a-vis that service model. And to know that if you're detached from communicating with your team members about what's happening in the market, if you're detached from celebrating their wins, if you're detached from welcoming new people to your team, if you're detached from the high level challenges that your top producers are faced with, or you don't have a mechanism for people to grow within their careers within your team, you're going to be set up again for low retention and challenges with the ongoing success of your team. And so you really do need to be the person to structure those things. Now, again, that communication piece is not super challenging. You know, in our team, for example, we have series of WhatsApp chats where I can see who's selling properties. We have daily huddles, for example, where we celebrate the wins of each team member and go through a gratitude practice. And so that gives me all the insight that I need to individually reach out to people, to be mindful of who could use some additional support, who could use a touch base, or who I could record a video about and celebrate on my social media, or who might need a bit of a goal setting session with me. And I want to be present for my team members to do that. One, because they're in many cases there because of me. Certainly the culture that I've created and the systems and support that we have in place, but ultimately there is a connection between each agent and me. And to leave agents void of that connection is a dangerous thing. And you want to have a system in place where you can optimize your time and maximize your input into the success and the lives of those agents so that they can feel connected to you, connected to your community, connected to your organization, connected to the services and support and coaching and systems that you're providing them with. And as an important integrative piece of that solution, you'll find that production goes up, that agents do a better job of actually attracting people to your team themselves, and that you'll have a much steeper and consistent growth trajectory, and you'll have much lower turnover. And with that, I mean, we're really only talking like a 10, 15 hour work week for me. That's just the mornings. I go into the office after I drop my kids off. By that time, I've recorded a piece of content, got it edited and posted, walk into my huddle, have another meeting with my wife, our director of operations, our COO, and then I slide into serving agents on the team, you know, for most of the morning, addressing any challenges that we have, communicating with them about market conditions, giving them updates, celebrating them, helping them feel respected, understood, seen, heard, and supported. And then in the afternoons, I get to focus on the other verticals that we're involved in, from my coaching company to the various other things that we're working on, either organizationally or in those other verticals. And so that gives me the freedom to communicate, hey, like this is the time when I'm there doing these things. And we've set the expectation with team members that I'm reachable during those times. I mean, sometimes they call or text if they can't get a hold of somebody else, but you know, that might be once or twice a month at this stage. And it's because we have these other fallback systems in place for support, be it through WhatsApp or contacting various leadership members or our bootcamp mentors or what have you. And so it really has systematized my time, optimized my time, and allowed me to pour in the areas where impact is highest. Because if you're out of production like I am, like I haven't sold a property for probably 5 or 6 years now, that's no longer the highest dollar activity. You know, I'm not in the business of like prospecting agents every single day. We have a model in place that gives us those opportunities and has them booking times with us. But I'm the person chatting with those people at some point. I'm usually like the third interview. If they make it past the first two, I'll have a quick conversation with them, generally about 15 minutes, and we'll go from there. And I have all of that booked in the early part of my day. And so just be mindful when you're scattered, when you have that sense of overwhelm, when you've got all of these things that you need to do and all these people that you need to get back to and all these fires from deals and questions that you have from your team members and all of these things. There are ways to optimize and systematize those things so that you're not stuck dealing with them, so that you can get your time at a higher value where you're making a greater impact and leveraging the existing resources that you have on your team that are probably under leveraged right now. And if you want to have a conversation about how to do that, you know, the change management from either being in production and trying to grow the team or trying to step out of production if you're doing that right now, or trying to drive profit in your team while you're still out of production, I can have a conversation with you about what that would look like. You can just go ahead and send me a message and we can hop on a 45-minute needs assessment, and I can walk you through a couple quick strategies that will make a big difference. And then if you'd like to have a conversation about ongoing coaching, we can certainly do that too. So hopefully that serves you well. Leave me a comment below. I'd love to hear from you. Like and subscribe, of course. I make lots of content just like this. Okay, take good care.